Well guys, I don't know how well this is going to work, but we got the bug up on the jack, and we're going to see if we can figure out where that clunking is coming from. I already pretty much know, but I'm going to put the camera down there and see if it'll pick up what I'm seeing. Alright, the tripod's too tall to fit under here, and I don't have my light or anything yet, but that's the lower ball joint, that's the upper ball joint, and I don't know if I can move this. Might not pick it up. It moved a lot easier when there was weight on the car, but this nut right here is loose, so the whole ball joint is loose inside this camber adjuster. And there's also a little bit of slop in the front wheel bearing. I can feel just a little bit, so it probably needs adjustment. It rolls really nice and smooth, doesn't feel like there's anything bad in there, so get the hubcap off and go from there. Alright, it looks like just this nut is loose. I can actually turn it, it's not even rusted on there. And this is the camber adjuster. And the other side, the camber adjuster, is the fat part is all the way in, which would tip the wheel out at the top. So I'm going to set this one the same, and then I'm going to have to do some research to see whether or not that's correct, but I would have suspected it's probably not. Probably somebody did some work on the front end, changed the ball joint or something, and didn't know what they were doing and didn't know that turned or something. I'm not positive, I don't know, but it's obvious that this was loose. So I'm going to tighten that up and see what we get from there. Alright, I got this nut sufficiently tight. This one was a little loose, but not bad. It was fairly tight. So I'm definitely going to pull the other side apart and check that. Don't know if I'll get to it today. There's absolutely no drag at all on these brakes, and you probably can't see it. It does move. I can feel it. There's a little bit of slop in that. The camera's barely picking it up. It's not much, but it's enough that I can feel there's a little slop in them bearings. So I'm going to pull this dust cap off, take this apart, clean the bearings up, might as well if you have it apart, you know, clean the bearings up, put some new grease in there. This is a speedometer. They're real simple how they drive the speedometer. That actually goes right through the center of the spindle, and this is a square shaped piece, and there's a square hole in this cap. So as the wheel turns, it turns the speedometer shaft in the cable, which runs up through this hole under the trunk there, into the firewall, and runs the speedometer. There's just a little clip here, you got to pull that clip off, then pull the cap off. Alright. Well, that's rather interesting. They use it looks like a bolt that squeezes that nut to keep that from backing off. So I'll have to pull this off, which feels like an Allen head. I'll have to get under there and check. And don't have my Allen wrenches out here, so I'll have to go get them. Take that nut off of there and take the bearings. I mean, it's grease in there. It looks pretty decent. It's just a little bit of slop in there, more than I would like. You know, usually the way you do this, and I probably should look in the shop manual. I have a Beetle shop manual, but usually you just draw that up until it's snug and you can start feeling drag, and then back it off just a tiny little bit. So you don't want to load them too much. That's what they call preload on the bearings, is when you put them under the load. See, right now there's very little preload because I can move this. So they're just basically just sitting there, and it'll turn really easy like that, but it could cause excessive wear, and there could be a little movement in that wheel, and a little tiny bit of movement here on the shaft is amplified greatly by the time you get all the way out to where the wheel sets. You know, that can move quite a bit out here. You know, a few thousandths here might equal, you know, 1/32 of an inch or something out here, and you'll definitely feel that when you're driving. So, and it's a good chance, you know, to pull it apart, clean it, check the brakes. You know, there's no load on the brakes at all. There's no drag at all, and those shoes should be just barely skimming that, you know, so that you got good pedal. So I'll look into that too. Look at my Allen wrenches and take this off here. Alrighty, this wasn't very tight, and interestingly enough, this is actually left-handed threads. So turn that to the right and it comes off. Normally that would be tightening. Probably because it's on the left-hand side of the vehicle. That wind is picking up. I don't know how well you're going to be able to hear me. So, there's the outer bearing. Looks in good shape. I don't know if I can. I might have to back those brakes off to get this off. She'll come. She's coming. I can't do it with one hand very well. There it is. A tiny little set of VW brakes. They're not super new, but they're not completely worn out. And there's the adjusters. I'll make sure that they're all lubed up and working good. And probably scuff them just a little bit with some sandpaper, like 320 grit or 220 grit. Just take the glaze off of them. Do the same thing inside the drum. I'm going to clean all this grease off, most of it anyway. Probably won't be able to pack the inner bearing very well because of the seal. I want to pull the seal out. The seal rides around here. Keeps the dirt and dust from the brakes from getting into your bearings. But I'll clean it up best I can, put some new grease in there and button her back up. Alright. I got her all cleaned up and re-greased. For those of you who like to put a whole bunch of grease in the dust cap, don't bother. It doesn't do anything. You can't get into the bearings unless the thing gets so hot that the grease melts, and by then it's probably too late. You know, when you pack bearings, if you think you're doing a good job by just rubbing a little grease around the outside of the bearings, you're not. You know, all you're doing is just putting grease on there that's going to come right back off. When you pack a bearing, you have to put a big gob of grease in the palm of your hand and work that bearing from the edge of the bearing and get that grease in there. If you're fortunate enough to have a bearing packer, which is a handy little plastic funnel looking thing that you can use to pack bearings with a grease gun. Those are nice, but I don't happen to have one. So I have to do it the old-fashioned way, and you're going to get dirty. If you don't get dirty, the bearings aren't packed right. If you're doing it the manual way. And this wasn't very tight here either, which may be why the nut loosened up. Now I got no movement, no shucking in there, and that's not loaded too much. That's nice. That's good. This side's pretty much done. I'm going to adjust the brakes up, and that requires two hands, so I won't be able to film that, but I'm going to adjust the brakes up and we'll go from there. I'll check the tie rod ends and everything, make sure everything else is snug. I do see a little bit of play in the steering arm. I don't know if it's loose or something there, but I'll check into that. Alright, I got the wheel all back on. It's not tight yet because it's not sitting on the ground. I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up. Right in the center of the screen, right there, that's the end of the steering box. And if I do this, I don't know if it's going to work. So I can't hold the camera and move the... But anyway, when I wiggle the wheel back and forth, there's a clunking sound. And that pitman arm there, steering arm, goes up and down. There's too much end play. And I believe, without looking in the book, that that's controlled by this right here. So I'm going to back this nut off and snug that down just a little bit. See if I can't get that end play out of there. And I'll let you know how it turns out. Alright, I got that adjusted. Got most of the slop out of it. If you go too far, then it's hard to turn the steering wheel. So it's probably just a bunch of wear in the steering box. But it's not excessive. It only really clunks at the very ends. There's a little bit more slop in it. But yeah, I'm happy with it. It's tightened up the wheels. So put this little door back on here. Oops. This might require two hands. I got a squeaky ball joint on the driver's side, the one that was loose. I don't know if maybe somebody went to replace it. It doesn't seem like there's any slop in it yet, but usually once they start squeaking, it isn't long and you got to replace them. There's no grease fittings on it, of course. There. So I guess I will take the passenger side apart and look at that. I wonder what's in this little access door. It's almost just like the one for the steering box. And there's nothing in there. Nothing in there that I can see. Can you see anything? Nope. So I don't know what that little door is for. Thought maybe there was an idler in there for the steering, but there's not. At least not that I can see. So I'm going to do the same thing I did to the passenger side. Take the wheel off, check the brakes, grease the bearings, check everything out. I won't bore you with that because it's exactly the same as the driver's side, except there's no speedometer cable. So with that said, I'll move on. So we're on the passenger side now, and everything was going well until I tried to turn this brake adjuster, and it's stuck. And it's supposed to look like this, and this hub part is rusted into this block, and I can't get it out. And I tried heating it with a torch, and it just won't budge. So I've devised a plan. I've got a longer metric bolt. It's the same thread as the adjuster end, and I'm going to try driving this down in here. See if I can force that to come up out. I put PB blaster and everything all on there, and can't get it to move. But it's a blind hole. Yeah, there's the bottom of it. It's a blind hole. Oh, she's moving. She is tight. Well, it's turning anyway. That's definitely rusted in there. So I'll work on getting this out, because that's probably going to require two hands. And then I'll button this side back together, same as I did the other one. Alright, we got that side all buttoned up. So I'm probably going to order me some ball joints, because the one on the driver's side, I think it's the driver's side upper, is the one that was loose. The boot is torn, probably from it being loose and rattling around in there. And it's probably it's dried out, you know, it squeaks really bad when you steer it. There doesn't seem to be any slop in it, but it won't be long and there will be. So I guess that'll do it for today. I'm going out tonight for my birthday's next week, so going out to a dinner and a play, so that ought to be kind of fun. It'll be a comedy, it'll be pretty funny. It's just some local people that do it. They usually do a really good job, so I'm looking forward to that. So, probably won't get back to this until maybe tomorrow afternoon, unless the weather's bad, which is supposed to be cold and snowy, so Anyway, thanks for watching, and maybe I won't be killed now the next time I drive it. That ball joint being loose, that was kind of scary. I wondered why it was clunking. But she's fixed now, at least for the time being, and like I said, I'll probably order some ball joints for the front of it. Maybe some tie rod ends. Stuff is cheap for it, you know, so why not do it and be safe? So, again, thanks for watching, and tune in next time.